Hey up campers, Johnny Matthew here. I hope you're okay. Welcome back to the blog. If it's your first time, great to have you. If you're a returning visitor, likewise, welcome. If you want to go beyond the voluntary free subscription, click through to the blog. You can support the work for as little as £5. I would be very grateful, but you are welcome to this free of charge as always, of course. Okay, this is the voiceover of the blog, which is called Children on the Margins 2. What practitioners can do. Introduction. To save you some time, last week's blog about this latest report on marginalised children summarised the content and recommendations. This week, though, I want to focus on what I think you and I, as practitioners with troubled kids, can do to lend our shoulders to the plough in effecting change. Now, this, of course, could easily fester into a book all of its own, so I've limited myself to the things that came to mind as I read the report, those yes, but what about kind of moments, you know. So as always, it's not an exhaustive list or in any particular order, but I did enjoy letting the brakes off a bit on these. So I hope they encourage you. So here goes. What can practitioners do to help marginalised children? Practitioners play a vital role in facilitating meaningful change with kids at the margins. So here are a few associated thoughts provoked by the report, but not attributable to it, that might help to improve frontline care and support for these children. And as I say, they're not in any particular order. There are, let's have a look, there are 9 of these and then just a couple of points to finish with at the end. Okay, here we go. Number 1, build and maintain trust. Trust is foundational, isn't it, when we're working with marginalised kids? So practitioners should demonstrate reliability, follow through on promises and show genuine care in their interactions. The idea of consistency, predictability and reliability, what we call CPR, in our TRM training, is key to this. Consistency builds trust, which gives us the in we need to help kids. The trouble is that lots of services simply don't allow the time it takes for us to demonstrate consistency, even though we may want to, which in turn means that kids don't get to see us being consistent for long enough, certainly not for long enough to allow trust to develop. Putting an end to short-term and or time-limited interventions would absolutely help with this. You can't build trust quickly. You need time to be consistent. Number 2, active listening. Listening isn't just about hearing, is it? It's about making children feel heard, valued and understood. So we need to create safe, non-judgmental spaces where kids feel comfortable sharing their experiences. Making an effort to be proactive and visibly and obviously looking like we're listening can massively help with this too. One thing you can't do when a child is speaking to you is multitask, at least not without giving the impression that you're not really listening at all. One thing I often say when I'm teaching professionals in training or on college and university courses and so on is, before you see the child, take a moment to think about what it would be like to see you coming to a meeting, a session, home visit, etc. See yourself through their eyes and then ask yourself, if I were this kid seeing me today, what would I want from me? I also think it's useful to bring to mind briefly what we know about the child's history so that we go into the interaction in the right mindset, I suppose. So getting back to nationwide, community-based, fully funded youth service would massively help towards this, in my view. That's just a kind of policy bazooka. At the end, we need a youth service. It is an astonishingly helpful thing, but has been serially undermined, almost to the point of non-existent in some areas in recent decades. So number 1, build, maintain trust. Number 2, active listening. Number 3, adopt a trauma-informed approach. This is a bit of soapbox issue for me. I'm sorry, but here goes. Understand how trauma shapes child development, fuels negative emotional states, which in turn often underlie and drive behavioural problems, including crime, to name but one of many. Menu-based, off-the-shelf, manualised, generic, short-term interventions do not constitute trauma-informed practice, in my view. There needs to be a clear and agreed philosophy, a model, if you like, that drives policy formation, but also funding allocation and service provision. Now, again, our trauma recovery model is one example, but we need something to cohere around. See, I fear that without a model to act as a reference point, a theory of change and an axis around which policy and practice can cohere, trauma-informed practice will degenerate into just another catchphrase bandwagon, really, without soul or substance. Number 4, prioritise self-care. This is a word to us, I suppose. Supporting marginalised kids is emotionally demanding, and so is working with them. But other than some of the health professions where it's mandatory, there's no expectation of or provision for professionals to receive support in the work. Certainly there's nothing usually beyond a pastoral element to case management supervision, which, though infinitely better than nothing and substantively a good thing, depending on who's doing it, it's not what we're talking about here. So that needs to change, and obviously it's got clear funding implications if and when it does. In the meantime, unfortunately, practitioners probably need to invest in their own well-being where necessary, certainly if they're going to prevent burnout and compassion fatigue. But ultimately, all of this and the costs of it should be part of employers' obligations and built in to the system. Our evaluations of the enhanced case management approach in youth justice have proven beyond doubt the utility, effectiveness in practice, and in my view, the cost savings that result from providing good clinical supervision for practitioners, particularly those on the sharp end of the most difficult stuff. So be kind to colleagues, look out for each other, opt out of macho working culture wherever you see it, and where you can, advocate for some form of reflective, if not clinical, supervision. Number 5, advocate for change. Use your voice to highlight systemic barriers and failures. Practitioners are the best people to speak to power about what needs to change and to suggest alternatives, in my view. Data and research have their part to play, of course, but nothing beats getting up close and personal with kids and their families for giving a truly real-world perspective. Collaborate with other professionals to push for policy improvements. Make suggestions and communicate these up the food chain as far up as you can. Make the arguments for practices that will do a better job for these kids. Think creatively. Identify good practice. Get involved in research and lobby for more innovative practices that constantly improve outcomes. In my experience, such interventions are nearly always cheaper in the long run. But unless we make the arguments from a practice perspective, things will change only very slowly. Quick coffee slurp break. All right, so we've had build and maintain trust, active listening, adopt a trauma-informed approach, prioritise self-care, advocate for change. All right, we've got 4 more. Number 6, encourage personal development in children. Help kids set realistic goals and develop their own sense of agency. Interventions and outcomes that kids are invested in themselves are far more likely to work, I reckon. Kids are very good at knowing what they need, with obvious exceptions, of course, like give me 200 quid and buy me a barrel of beer, and the like. But harnessing the insight that they do have can really help us to formulate successful plans and, of course, get their investment in it. Foster resilience through small, achievable successes. Learn to notice little, often minute, changes for the better and point them out. Incremental changes are more tricky to notice and so often go without fanfare. But if we can learn to notice these, bring them to the attention of the kids themselves and, when necessary, to colleagues, everyone is encouraged. This in turn helps us persevere in the work, but more importantly, it can give kids hope that even though change may be slow at times, it is happening. That pointing out small incremental changes is one of the biggest things I've learned from Dr. Tricia Skuse and Caroline Hoskins and my other psychology colleagues. They are really good at that, and I think the rest of us could really learn some valuable lessons there. So encourage personal development in kids, notice small changes. Number 7, embrace relational practice. Build authentic relationship as the basis for all interventions. I love this quote from Bruce Perry. Remember, quote, the major tool you have in helping others to change is you. Relationships are the currency of change. End quote. That's from Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey's book, What Happened to You. It's a 2021 book. It's really good. I enjoyed that. I was skeptical, I have to say, because I like him and I wasn't sure what Oprah would bring to the party. But actually, she's extremely invested in trauma-informed practice and knows an awful lot about it. And the book is mainly her questioning Dr. Perry about his research and how to put that into practice. And so it's really, really well worth a read. What Happened to You, Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. So we talked about number 7, embrace relational practice. Show consistency and commitment even when progress is slow, especially in the early stages of getting to know a child when trust building is everything. Hang in there. Don't give up. Let the kid know that you believe in them and in their ability, with your help, to push through to better things. Your hope gives them hope if they know you and believe that you believe in them. We have to have skin in the game and build relationships. So we're back, I guess, also to my constantly repeated maxim of what I try to do when I don't know what to do. And that is lean in, empathize, and be kind. Works every time for me. Number 8, provide creative outlets. Use simple things, tools like art, music, and play to help kids process trauma and build confidence. Let them see your incompetence in things. Have a laugh. If you're rubbish at drawing or football or whatever it is you're doing together, then all the better. Keep trying something new together if their confidence can cope with that. But all the while, you're using these opportunities to cross the bridge of your relationship with them to affect some change. Now, do all this carefully, of course, and stay in your professional lane. In other words, don't experiment or dive into areas you don't feel qualified or equipped to deal with, of course. But think outside the box. Think about what the child likes, how they communicate, what kind of learner they are, and so on. And then find new, creative, and different ways to spend time, build relationships, and help them develop. So number 9, lastly, take action. Avoid getting stuck in bureaucracy and prioritize tangible action over endless discussion. Man alive, I could seriously rant for a few thousand words on this, but that's obviously exactly what we're trying to avoid. Just words and no action. So tick the boxes, the admin stuff as quickly as you can and get out there with the child and do stuff. be proactive in finding solutions, even when challenges seem difficult or even insurmountable. Push hard when you need the help of others. Make the arguments with managers and funders. Basically, wherever possible, focus on the stuff that will move the dial for the kid, not on admin, process, risk aversion, and talk. Action always speaks louder. That puts me in mind of the quote from Mark Twain that we used in last week's post, Children on the Margins #1, where he says, quote, "Actions speak louder than words, but not nearly as often." End quote. Love that. So there you go. 9 strategies. Build and maintain trust. Active listening. Adopt a trauma-informed approach. Prioritize self-care. Advocate for change. Encourage personal development in children and get them involved in planning. Embrace relational practice. Provide creative outlets. Take action. So what's missing? So just before I finish, there were 3 things that came to mind. There were more actually, but I had to limit myself. So there are 3 things that stood out for me as being missing from the Children on the Margins report that if they were addressed, I think would go some way to bringing change on these issues. Now, most of these are Wales specific that I'm going to talk about now, but absolutely have currency much more broadly. So there are 3 of these. Number 1, get on and implement the Youth Justice Blueprint. This is a Wales-specific thing, but it's a really good blueprint and absolutely speaks to the UK situation as a whole, in my view. So the Wales Youth Justice Blueprint, first adopted in 2019, and is still largely caught up in the usual inertia that kills good policy eventually, very often. The blueprint would help bring youth justice further in line with recent science and effective practice for kids with complex trauma histories who find themselves on the wrong end of the law. It would also begin to address the nonsensical lack of appropriate secure accommodation for those kids who don't fit neatly into the health, welfare, or criminal secure categories, or find themselves endlessly skipping between them without really finding help that really matches their needs. So number 1, get on and implement the blueprint, Youth Justice Blueprint. Number 2, I've got to watch myself here. Stop messing with the private residential sector in such a ham-fisted way. Local authorities for years have tried and serially failed for the most part to provide long-term effective homes for the most complex kids. Now, I know before you start shouting at your phone or the computer or Spotify, I know there are brilliant examples of this done by local authorities. But we all know how many kids are in the private or charitable sector because local authorities can't cope. That's why they've turned to the voluntary and more often probably the private sector for help. Now, though, the Welsh Government seems hell-bent on undermining this through some outdated anti-profit idealism that owes more to an anachronistic quasi-socialist view of the world than it does to modern creative social policy. Of course, excessive profiteering from public money on the back of troubled kids is an absolute disgrace. Nobody with half a conscience would argue with that. But we all know who the main culprits are for that, and we know what to do to stop them. There are some brilliant suggestions on the table getting overlooked because of this ending profit nonsense from the Welsh Government. Here's my plea. Don't throw the good quality residential baby out with the profiteering bathwater, or there will be a lot of very vulnerable kids with nowhere to live. Instead, listen to the sector. Again, we know who's doing it right as well, and we know the people taking the proverbial. So let's be creative and work out a better way of addressing the problem. But let's do it with those who work in and have expertise in this field, and not allow outdated political ideology to wreck the sector. So get on and implement the Youth Justice Blueprint, stop messing with the private residential sector, and thirdly, just take a breath after my little rant there, sort out services for neurodivergent kids. I'm just going to suppress another rant for a second. Okay, in my area, the stated waiting time for children needing an ADHD assessment is, for example, 3 years. 3 years. I mean, that is madness. That's kids missing out on appropriate targeted care, missing out on possible useful medical help. It's kids missing out on a decent education and the social and developmental learning they can get from that because they struggle to engage. 3 years of it. It's shocking. Information gathered in 2022 showed that there were over 9,000 kids on the waiting list for an autism assessment. This is madness. Given that these conditions can undermine a child's confidence, relationships, ability to engage in education and all the rest of it, means it's absolutely a priority to get this sorted. Children who are properly assessed, diagnosed where necessary, and in receipt of treatment do better. Funnily enough, these kids are overrepresented in those known to have been exploited, truly at the margins. And that's notwithstanding the well-documented mental health challenges that can run alongside undiagnosed and untreated neurodivergent conditions. So let's have a concerted effort to implement some of the good ideas already in the public domain to fix this situation. I could go on, but you get the idea. Now, there are links throughout the post to other documents that can be read and bolster some of this stuff. So a lot of work has been done, including this new report, to articulate the problems. But for me, the job now is to get on and do some fixing. So, final thoughts on this one. Children on the Margins report is pretty good because it highlights the plight of groups of kids who quite often fall through the gaps. The recommendations, of course, have got merit too. But one thing keeps striking me as I've read it. If the recommendations of previous investigations had been implemented, even partially, we probably wouldn't even need this report at all. So until the change we all want to see actually materialises, we as practitioners have to crack on and do what we can to affect change. We may be limited in our roles by budgets, systems and processes and all that stuff, but we can lean into kids, build relationships, listen to their needs and fight for their rights to have those needs met properly. Decades ago, when I did my social work training, that's what social work was all about. And I, for one, haven't given up yet. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.